So Raphael, less known as an architect, but he was an architect too, and at one time he was even in charge of the building of San Pietro in Rome. So Raphael Sanzio da Urbino, he was born in Urbino on March 28th or April 6th, and he died on April 6, 1520, 37. Known as Raphael, was an Italian painter and architect of the High Renaissance. His work is admired for its clarity of form, ease of composition, and visual achievement of the Neoplatonic ideal of human grandeur. Together with Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci, he forms the traditional trinity of great masters of that period. Not a little thing at all. But Michelangelo lived much, much longer, and even Leonardo. So some drawings by this great master. I will not comment too much on them, so my voice will not, although maybe I should exercise it. He was a master. I mean, he drew impeccably, and what can we say? He learned from Leonardo. He was about 20 years younger than Leonardo. I keep saying, if we are to learn, let's learn from the best. He learned from Leonardo, Picasso learned from Raphael. You should learn from the best architects or artists, or both. Don't settle for less, really. Well, this is actually the presentation with him as an artist. I intended to, but I will go to the architect next. He learned from Leonardo the technique of sfumato, which means the softening of the frontier line, the peripherical line of the bodies or objects or whatever. So between the background and the figure, there was a discrete, very discrete line. And his paintings are impressive. If you go to visit the Vatican art galleries, you know, you'll see amazing paintings by him. Someone who is an expert in the Renaissance is able to differentiate the workings of Michelangelo and Leonardo and Raphael because the drawings are actually, well, the drawings of Michelangelo are different. Also, the drawings, I'm beginning to know a little bit about them, so I think I could differentiate between the drawings of the three. Usually Raphael is a little more, less tensioned, less turbulent, less agitated, actually, than both Leonardo and Michelangelo, especially Michelangelo, but even Leonardo was visited by some darker forces sometimes, so to speak. Paintings by this great Renaissance painter. The fact that he achieved so much until the age of 37 does say something about the level of excellence that he achieved, and also the hard work. I mean, some of the works are very large. Not that they are much easier to do if they are smaller, really. There are great paintings by Albrecht Dürer which are very small, and but they are considered masterpieces of art, and with good reason. The paintings of Raphael have a serenity, a calmness, which is specific to him. This is the famous School of Athens. Here you see Michelangelo depicted. This is Plato, Aristotle, and Diogenes. And anyway, I long in my naivete and my idealism for a new kind of school where, you know, maybe similar scenes with different clothing probably could have been or could be seen. But this kind of life needed the contemplative life, needed contemplation. And I'm afraid in today's world, we don't reflect too much on the need of what was called vita contemplativa. This is a perfect painting, if I can say so. It has everything. And there was a quest for ideality, you know, and that we don't have these days. It's true, we have a more complicated world, and much more complicated. But maybe some form of idealism and interiority and even introversion, and as a result, contemplation can be achieved again. And the pandemic seems to push us towards something like this somehow. Apparently, this is a self-portrait here. The portrait of the artist as a young man, as James Joyce would have said. I recommend you, if you want a great book with that very title by James Joyce, who was a friend of Brancusi, The Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man. Plato and Aristotle. Where are our philosophers today? You know, we have plenty of shoes as opposed to them. You see, Plato didn't have shoes in this painting, but he was Plato. Somehow the philosophers receded in insignificance. You know, though our world doesn't need great philosophers, doesn't need great thinkers. There are a few, but they don't have the prestige, the greatness, and the impact on society that these philosophers in ancient Greece had. I mean, anyway, just a fragment of this fresco would have made any painter, you know, claim with justification, high position in the history of art. Just a fragment, you know, but he painted many others. Michelangelo, the troubled one. Parnassus and School of Athens, we already saw it in details, but you see where it is actually in its context. As you can see, it's quite large. I mean, look at the dimension of the door as compared to the fresco. And while he learned from Leonardo, hopefully he didn't use the technique that Leonardo used for his frescoes, which made them almost disappear in time. Leonardo used an experimental kind of way of doing frescoes, and apparently it failed. So some frescoes by Leonardo almost vanished. With great efforts, they are kept, you know, at a certain level of legibility. So these were the clients, you know, the Pope and the cardinals and yeah, the church in general. Pope was usually a very cultured man, and you know, the church found it necessary to sustain itself with the support of the greatest artists and architects, of course. That's why I'll go a little bit quicker because I have to show a lot. Raphael was asked to take care of San Pietro for some years, and it was not a little honor considering that he was a young man and he was a painter, and he was asked to. He did many things. He was even in charge with the archaeology of Rome. It's incredible how much he did until 37. Besides, besides painting these masterpieces, one after the other. Maybe this is the quintessential portrait of someone in the age of sustainability, right? No shoes, a book under the arm, a plant in the other hand, and a kind of pious face. I would say that this is, yes, a human being who seems to live in a so-called sustainable way. And please don't tell me that in the picture is not shown his car. Its Majesty, the car. It seems we cannot live without the car. Humanity lived without cars for thousands of years, but we can't. It's like, we would rather die than not have a car. Well, Raphael also was active within a time when there was faith, which created unity, and there was a narrative derived from faith, which was known by people, and the subjects were almost all of them religious. We don't have that. We are free, but kind of sterile in our freedom. Well, it was said that he also had a very intense romantic life, so to speak. Some even think that he died because of the excesses of his romantic life. I don't know. There are all kinds of malicious critics, but anyway, artists are complex. They have a life which is not the typical one usually, and they pay for it. He died at 37, just like Vincent van Gogh, if I'm not mistaken. So as I said, Picasso said that he learned to paint like Raphael in 4 years. And then in a lifetime to paint like a child, meaning free from the history of art, free from the quest for perfection, more spontaneous and more instinctual, in a way maybe more innocent, I don't know. Lots of Madonnas. He painted a lot of Madonnas. We have a Madonna too these days, don't we? Still singing. At that time, probably would have been inconceivable for a singer to take the name of Madonna, But in our time, it seems there is no problem. Here he is. This was apparently Raphael. He doesn't really look like a man who dies because of romantic excesses. I don't know. If this is him, he looks rather pious and somehow without a lot of that specific energy which romantic entanglements would require. But who knows? Appearances could be misleading. He was certainly good looking, as most Italians are. It's uh, it's the privilege and also the curse. Paintings. He also painted, and I hope I have in this presentation, I forgot, I did it a while ago. He has paintings, I mean frescoes, which are incorporated in an architectural setting, in a specific architectural setting. Anyway, if you are attracted towards Raphael, there is a rich an abundance of information about him on the web. This is just stirring up a little bit the eye and the soul and the mind by it's an aide memoir of his works, about his works. Another pope. Even a pope is troubled. You know, we are all troubled. We are all born in order to suffer sometimes on earth, and then you know the end. I wonder if he would have painted in the same way if he knew that one day, or if during his lifetime there was an atomic bomb. Could you paint in this way knowing that there is an atomic bomb? I don't know. I'm not sure. Not that their life was easy, was not. But the reality of the atomic bomb changes consciousness, changes everything. How could you continue to paint angels? Or saints, for that matter? This is one of my favorite paintings by Raphael. We saw this one already. Okay, so now we go to him as an architect. Um, Raphael, architect. After Bramante's death in 1514, Raphael was named architect of the new St. Peter's. Most of his work there was altered or demolished after his death and the acceptance of Michelangelo's design, but a few drawings have survived. It appears his designs would have made the church a good deal gloomier than the final design, with massive piers all the way down the nave like an alley, according to a critical posthumous analysis by Antonio da Sangallo the Younger. It would perhaps have resembled the temple in the background of the expulsion of Heliodorus from the temple. You'll see the plans. On the left is the one by Bramante, which was originally proposed, then Raphael in the center, and then Michelangelo. With Maderna's addition, actually, Michelangelo almost came back to the scheme proposed by Bramante, but Maderna, he lengthened the nave kind of. So in the end, maybe there was some kind of an influence of Raphael's plan for San Pietro. We'll see more things in detail. So this was his plan. Raphael's plan indeed is very different from how San Pietro looks now. So Raphael's plan was for a basilica in the form of a Roman cross with a short pronaos and a facade. Here in this picture, which was not painted by him, we see here, this is Raphael with his drawings. They show to the Pope the plans of San Pietro. This is Bramante. No, this is not Bramante actually, because the plan shown is not Bramante's. But who could he be? This is Michelangelo. I'm a little bit confused about this because Bramante's plan was different. I think the painter, whoever painted this, got it wrong. This plan does not belong to Bramante, but I read that this man was supposed to represent Bramante. He's even old as he's supposed to be. So Michelangelo, Bramante, and Raphael. But the plan they discuss here is not Bramante's. Bramante's is this one here. So I think I'll have a few more images about this. Altar of, no, I don't right now. But the idea was I think, clarified from the beginning. There were 3 proposals, but before that, there was an older basilica which was destroyed, and in its place was built a new San Pietro with a first plan by Bramante, but not this one. Then followed Raphael on the right, and then Michelangelo, and then Maderno. Altar of Transfiguration with painting by Raphael. This was inside San Pietro. Stanze Vaticani, the Liberation of St. Peter by Raphael. You see pictorial art integrated into architecture. You see it here. It must have been very exciting, you know, to be able to work in, you know, in architecture, in painting, for major works like this one. He designed several other buildings, and for a short time was the most important architect in Rome. Not a little thing, working for a small circle around the papacy. Julius had made changes to the street plan of Rome, creating several new thoroughfares, and he wanted them filled with splendid palaces. An important building, the Palazzo Branconio dall'Aquila, for Leo's papal chamberlain Giovanni Battista Branconio, was completely destroyed to make way for Bernini's Piazza for St. Peter's, but drawings of the facade and courtyard remain. The facade was an unusually richly decorated one for the period, including both painted panels on the top story of 3 and much sculpture on the middle one. So this is the Palazzo Branconio dell'Aquila. whatever remained, you know, in 2 dimensions from it, designed by Raphael. He also made a proposal for San Lorenzo in Florence, which was also not, didn't come to fruition, but then Michelangelo's didn't come to fruition either. And to this day, San Lorenzo is without an elaborate facade. The main designs for the Villa Farnesina were not by Raphael, but he did design and decorate with mosaics the Chigi chapel for the same patron, Agostino Chigi, the papal treasurer. You know, it seems treasurers are doing well in general. They did, they do, and they will. Another building for Pope Leo's doctor, the Palazzo Jacopo da Brescia, was moved in the 1930s but survives. This was designed to complement a palace on the same street by Bramante, where Raphael himself lived for a time. So this is the chapel. I hope I have pictures. I'll arrive at it. The Chigi Chapel, or the Chapel of the Madonna of Loreto, is the second chapel on the left-handed side of the nave in the Basilica of Santa Maria del Popolo in Rome. It is the only religious building of Raphael which has been preserved in its near original form. The chapel is a treasure trove of Italian Renaissance and Baroque art and is ranked among the most important monuments in the Basilica. A drawing which is maybe by him, and here is the actual chapel. Again, you cannot separate art from architecture. They are one. Something we don't do these days, but maybe one day we'll do it again. So this is a chapel within a church. And many works were done like this, where various architects and artists contributed, and you know, it's sometimes difficult to separate one work from another, one artist's work from another artist's work. The dome with the mosaics of Raphael, an incredible dome. I mean, usually domes were incredible, both as architecture, but also as artworks. They were for the glory of God. That's what it was. God the Father, studied by Raphael for the dome. Here it is, God the Father, not a simple task, you know, to draw. I wonder if hand was trembling when he attempted to draw God the Father. The personification of winter by him also. So there are various, you know, metaphorical portraits. Salviati, Chigi, separation. I'm not familiar with the story behind this, but the painting is by Raphael. Salviati, Chigi, sun, moon. You see the sun and the moon. Salviati, Chigi, earth. An omnipotent God, of course. Salviati, Chigi, Adam. Very different from what Michelangelo painted. But in essence, it's about the same thing. Palazzo Jacopo da Brescia, he built this, or based on his designs. Well, these are late you know, drawings or architectonic representations. There was a lot of work done for just a facade sometimes. Something, again, we don't do these days too much, you know, but because the modern movement in its quest for space again, doesn't appreciate very much the value of a rather bidimensional facade. This is the building, and it moves me to know that it's you know, almost 500 years old building. Of course, there is the Pantheon, which is 2,000 years old, but that's a different thing. That was built by an emperor, an incredible emperor, Adrian, who apparently also exercised himself a little bit as an architect. Some think he was not just the commissioner, but also the apparently he contributed somehow to the design. He was a special emperor with artistic interests and knowledge. The Villa Madama, a lavish hillside retreat for Cardinal Giulio de' Medici, later Pope Clement VII, was never finished, and his full plans have to be reconstructed speculatively. He produced a design from which the final construction plans were completed by Antonio da Sangallo the Younger. I think this month would also pay homage to Antonio da Sangallo the Younger. Even incomplete, it was the most sophisticated villa design yet seen in Italy and greatly influenced the later development of the genre. It appears to be the only modern building in Rome of which Palladio made a measured drawing. Not bad. So Villa Madama, Rome, Raphael and Antonio da Sangallo. I somehow breathe easier when I read these names. I mean, just read these again. Villa Madama, Rome, Raphael and Antonio da Sangallo. It sounds good somehow, you know. It sounds optimistic that there is the possibility of greatness and that the arts do matter significantly. It's not very clear to me what he did here. I tried various times to, you know, apparently this portion, but the building is much bigger and maybe it doesn't really matter so much. It was a collective work. There were two architects, but there were probably others. We know the names, these two names. But the works were complex, you know. It wasn't just you know, a succession of spaces. The Loggia of Raphael, this is something that apparently was done by him. Both the architecture and the pictorial work. How come that they were not happy to separate one from the other, as we do these days? What happened to us? How come that we are so different from them, that we don't feel the need for painting and sculpture to adorn our buildings? Why? There's nothing wrong with it, I would say. Yes, there is architecture, as we can see, but there is also art. And they don't contradict each other. Le Corbusier attempted to bring them together somehow. For example, in some of his works, his own art is present, like a Ronchamp, sporadically. He separated them kind of too. Sant'Eligio degli Orefici, initially designed by Raphael for the Guild of Goldsmiths, when they split off from the Guild of Iron Workers in 1509 and dedicated to their patron Saint Eligius. It was completed by Baldassare Peruzzi and Bastiano da Sangallo. Besides his work on St. Peter's Basilica, this is the only church in Rome that, although partially, can definitely be attributed to Raphael. Its cupola is attributed to Baldassare Peruzzi, and the interior is also by Raphael in a Bramante-like style, though the present facade is early 17th century and by Flaminio Ponzio. This one is in the corner of the street. What can we say? It's a little bit difficult to see because of the narrow street, but he worked here. But you see, even here is not. He was not the only author. I think that an architect who is also an artist and contributes to the building also through his art has the possibility, has the chance to even correct certain misgivings of construction or certain misgivings of conceptions through artistic contribution. Here is just architecture, and I think it's fine. It's a fine example of his capacity as an architect, and only as an architect. It's a small church, as you can see in the plan on the left. Tall, but small. Only some floor plans remain for a large palace planned for himself. Can you believe it? He was planning a palace, a large palace for himself. This shows clearly how much success he had in Rome on the new Via Giulia in the Rione of Regola, for which he was accumulating the land in his last years. It was on an irregular island block near the river Tiber. It seems all facades were to have a giant order of pilasters rising at least 2 stories to the full height of the piano nobile, a grandiloquent feature unprecedented in private palace design. So he was not the most modest man in the world, it seems. Raphael asked Marco Fabio Calvo to translate Vitruvius' 4 books of architecture into Italian. This he received around the end of August 1514. It is preserved at the library in Munich with handwritten margin notes by Raphael. So he studied very, very carefully the 4 books of Vitruvius. Palazzo Pandolfini in Florence, there is, a facade at least that we can look at that belongs to him. A smaller work compared to other Renaissance works. Still having the prestige of being 500 years old or so. Palazzo Uguccioni in Florence also, but with a question mark. The palace was built for Giovanni Uguccioni starting from 1550. Its design has been variously attributed to Raphael, Michelangelo, Andrea Palladio, Bartolomeo Amanati, or Raffaello da Montelupo, although no proofs exist, if not that its drawing came from Rome in 1549 and that its style was reminiscent of Raphael's or Bramante's, which were a novelty in Florence at the time. It is the only building in Florence with columns on its facade. Here it is. Interesting observation. The only building in Florence which has columns on its facade.